This is Gabriel Gonzalez for Cage Side Press here with Bellator flyweight Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, who takes on Bruna Ellen at Bellator 284 on August 12th. Ilima, obviously just a couple weeks out from the fight. Just how are you feeling going into this one?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, just your usual bumps and bruises from camp, but just excited to get back in there, excited to go out to South Dakota. I've never been to Sioux Falls before, so it'll be a nice little vacation slash work trip.
Now, obviously, it's an important fight, looking to bounce back and everything. But I would be remiss if I don't really get into a lot of the stuff that you have been talking about on social media. I think you're addressing something very important. For fans who are not following, you are actually taking action against a youth sports coach back in your native Hawaii, and you've
Yes.
revealed a lot of details. But I'd just like to ask, just for fans who don't know, what exactly is going on? Why is it important that attention gets brought to this?
Yes. So yes, I was involved in a lawsuit against a former coach of mine that was my coach when I was 12 years old. He was my basketball coach, and he ended up being a pedophile. And unfortunately, because of dumbass Hawaii laws and politicians, there is a statute of limitations that expired before we were able to prosecute him criminally. And so we had to go to civil court against him. And what that means is that there is going to be nothing on his record that shows that he is a sexual predator. And the sickening part of it is that he still works with minors. So I was just like, well, if I can't put this motherfucker behind bars, like I'm gonna fucking ruin his life. And I'm going to tell my story, tell my sister's story, and the other victims that came forward. There were a total of 6 of us, and we're going to share our stories and get him banned from ever working with kids ever again. So yeah, I've been actively, making phone calls, going on the news, going on my social media, calling out people who've been defending him. And yeah, it's been quite the fight camp. So yeah, I jokingly say like I've been fighting crime also as well as fighting girls, but yeah, that's kind of what a lot of my energy has been going into. And it was like really weird timing too. It wasn't like this popped up out of nowhere. It was like a weird article came out that was saying that like his basketball team released a public statement supporting him, and I was like, oh hell no, like fuck that. This is what this guy did. So that's what I've been doing. But it's been going in the right direction. I actually reported him to safesport.org, which is like an overarching like safety sports place that kind of like keeps an eye on these kinds of things. I talked directly to NCAA, the people who license the basketball coaches. And yeah, I think his basketball team got shut down, even though he's trying to create all these new ones and whatever's. Anyway, sorry, that was a long-winded explanation, but basically I've been fighting pedophiles.
No, for sure. And for fans who don't know, you had addressed it publicly a couple years ago, and I'm glad you brought it up. You said you noticed that essentially his career has been allowed to continue in the same capacity, work with minors and everything else, and that is why
Mhm.
you're kind of bringing it back around, so to speak, with more attention once again. Do I understand that right?
Yes, yes. And that is kind of the beautiful thing about my fight career too, is that it has given me a platform to make this aware. I can't even tell you how many messages I received after sharing my story and posting him that parents came to me and were like, if you didn't share my story, like my daughter would be playing with him right now. So thank you for doing that. And so yeah, I'm like, hey, if I can get one girl away from this predator like that, it makes it worth it. So yeah, the fight's still on. I mean, he's still out there, unfortunately, and we are also looking for um more recent victims, unfortunately, who fall within the statute of limitations so that we can prosecute him criminally.
Well, I know legally, obviously that's a lot of things that you probably cannot discuss publicly, but I did see that you said you were in correspondence with people more recently who might have been involved in something. So I will just say, for the sake of justice, I hope everything is going well in that process. Alima, to shift gears a little bit, to hear a lot of that, to be involved with something like that, a lot of emotions, a lot of energy spent, and yet we also have a fight, and we have you trying to get back in the win column. I know life goes on during training camp, even though you're supposed to be, hey, I'm really focused, get dialed in, get to the intensity, etc., etc. Has it been difficult to, like, hey, like, bring the eliminator out and have her ready and pretty much just peaking ready to go for this fight coming up?
You know, it has, but I don't know. It's like I'm just in a different phase of my career and my life where I almost feel like I don't need to put all my eggs in one basket. I don't need to just be so extremely focused that I disregard, the other parts of my life that need attention, because that's what I did. When I was going for the belt, when I was champion, that's what I had to do. And so I think it's not that I have a lack of focus on my fight career. It's just it's a different phase. And it's an adaptation of what I normally do. So I think that yeah, I mean, I do have a lot of other stuff going on in my life too, but everybody does. Like, you don't really meet a fighter who all they do, live, train, eat, breathe, fighting. They don't have mental shit going on. They don't have other like life or relationship problems going on. Everybody deals with that.
Now, another question fans might have had is coming out of that fight with Justine Kish, who'd kind of heard, hey, land on the neck, the stinger, and everything. And because you had already had a long layoff before that fight, I think fans were like, oh, it might be another minute before we see Ilima. Can you just talk a little bit about, physically with your health, just coming out of that and recovering for, relatively speaking, a bit of a quicker turnaround?
Yes, yeah. So fortunately and by God's grace, I didn't break anything. It was a stinger, so there was just some bone contusions and some nerve damage. And so luckily, yeah, I was literally sitting in the ER with a neck brace on, and as soon as the results came back, and it said like nothing's herniated, then I was like, okay, cool. I text Bellator like, hey guys, I'm good. Like I want to fight. And so we figured that this, what, 3 months, April, May, June, July, 4 months was like a good enough turnaround for me to heal up. So yeah, I did the physical therapy on the neck. I got a bunch of injections like PRP and all that good stuff in there. And yeah, it feels good. So yeah, the quick turnaround was very intentional because yeah, I'm like making up for lost time in a sense, having such a long layoff and just, I feel okay. I mean, I don't feel 100%, but like nobody feels 100% going into their fights.
To ask one final question on the fight with Justine, when you put the whole, like, each fight and the whole fight week and everything into perspective, I have to imagine there's two parts. Because for one, I don't know how you can't feel awesome when you have, I'll call it the main event treatment with your walkout. You got to bring out everyone and celebrate Hawaii once again, and obviously have that moment. The fight doesn't go your way, and ultimately, that's what all the hard work is for in the gym, right? So when you come out of that, how do you kind of balance? Look, it wasn't a bad week altogether, but obviously you wanted the win too.
Yeah, no, and then I'm like, okay, there has to be a lesson in here. What's the lesson? Or what's the silver lining? And the silver lining is that like you said, my treatment from everyone, you couldn't tell that I lost. Like you really couldn't tell. I couldn't tell that I lost. And it was just like the vibes and the energy and the crowd, the support is so high that they have our backs win or lose. I think the only Hawaii fighter that lost on or that won on that card was Yancey, and like every other Hawaii fighter lost. But it's like it didn't matter. The Hawaii crowd didn't care. They were just so stoked to be there to support us. And so yeah, it was fine that I lost. Like the only shitty thing was that I couldn't go to my after party because I was in the freaking hospital. But it's fine. We had a raging luau the next day. It's all good. So yeah, it definitely, the silver lining that put things into perspective is that win or lose, my family and the people I love in the state of Hawaii is always going to be there.
You've always had this very chill vibe, and I've always wanted to ask you this because when we hear of many fighters getting to that championship level and all that, those almost seems to come a point where all of them say, you know what, I'm ready to take anybody. I want the smoke with all of the big names. I don't care what promotion they fight for. I want everyone to know that I'm the best and go down as the best ever and all this other stuff. Maybe
Mhm.
it's just the Hawaiian chill part of you, but I've always felt like you've just kind of been like, you know what? I'm just here to do my thing. I got into the sport because I was trying to lose weight. I've stuck to my guns. I love Bellator. I've gotten to make good business decisions and be the face of Anheuser-Busch and Hawaii and all this stuff. I always want to know, what was the motivation? Like, are you someone that, like, I don't talk about it a lot, but I do want everyone to say Ilima was number one? Or is it just, I fell into it and I just love it and this is just how I make money? What's the motivation, Ilima?
That's a great question. So I'm like not your average fighter. I don't want the smoke. I want fights that like will make me the most money with the least amount of work possible. Like I want efficient fights and matchups. But like no, really, I like you said, this is something that I fell into. So I never had like a chip on my shoulder coming into the sport, like I want to be the best. Like no, I was just like, I just want to fucking lose weight. And then it was like, okay, I would just want to win my first fight. And so there was never in my wildest dreams would I ever imagine that like, holy fuck, I'm like ranked, number one in the world at one point. um so yeah, like you said, I'm kind of just like, yeah, this was something I fell into, that I found that I had a passion for, that I grew to love, and I was able to make a very successful and lucrative career out of it. And what else do I have to prove? Like I brought the belt back home to my gym. This was their first belt that they got from one of their fighters they built from the ground up. I brought the belt back home to Hawaii. I was the first Native Hawaiian world champion from Hawaii. I brought the belt home for Bellator. I was their freaking first female flyweight champion. And, it's like, again, what more do I have to do? Oh, I brought freaking Bellator back to Hawaii too. We finally got a big ass promotion in Hawaii. So it's like every pinnacle of somebody's career that you could imagine, I pretty much did. So yeah, do I want the smoke? I want to have fun fights. I want to go fight in like Ireland and Japan and like have super fun ass fights that are freaking like fun where we punch each other in the face. Is that too much to ask? I don't think so.
To wrap it up simply with maybe just a simple yes or no. There are some female flyweights who might be like, if I never get to test myself against Valentina, like it would feel incomplete because you want to prove something, right? Is it safe to say simply you're just not wired that way? You're happy with how it's gone, whether or not that ever happens in some universe or not?
Yeah, I don't think I need to prove. Oh no, here's the thing. I don't want to get fucked up, and I'll get fucked up by Valentina. Like I have zero problem with like saying like, no, Valentina is way fucking better than me. I would lose. I would lose to Valentina. Yeah, again, I don't have I don't have a chip on my shoulder to prove to people that I'm the best. I'll give everybody a run for their money, but like, no, I'm not the best in the world, and that's okay with me. I have a very badass life, and I was like, I'm happy, and that's all you can really. Well, that's the goal of life, is to be happy, and I'm very happy.
I appreciate that honesty, and I think a lot of fans do too. Two easy ones to round home. your longtime teammate, and I'm assuming just came up since you like a kid. Juliana Miller has a big fight coming up next week that'll be big for her career. Just what is your prediction, and just what can you tell about her camp as she approaches the biggest fight of her young career?
Juliana Miller is gonna fucking kill next week Saturday. She truly is the killer. Um, I've never met anybody that works as hard as this girl does, who is like so driven. This girl has the most heart I've ever seen out of anybody. And from like the beginning, when we really started training together, I was just like, this girl's gonna be a freaking world champion. She's gonna be a world champion. I know it. So yeah, just seeing her fight on the big stage, it's like this is where she belongs. And I'm pretty sure she's made a lot of fans already. So you guys can expect like that. And that's her. If you guys have been following the show, that is 100% how she is. There's no gimmicks, there's no fakeness or anything. She's just our fucking crazy East County princess. So yeah, I'm super excited for her. I'm bummed I'm not going to be there because I'm freaking 1 week out from my fight. But yeah, make sure to tune in to the Ultimate Fighter finale on UFC Fight Pass and cheer for my girl Juliana the Killer Miller.
And then final question to wrap it up, just what can fans expect when the cage door closes behind you and Bruna Ellen on August 12th?
Man, I think the fight fans can expect a really like high volume fight. I think she doesn't want to engage with me. Okay, I think it's going to be either really fucking boring if she doesn't engage with me and just like runs on the outside and tries to outpoint me, or it's going to be a brawl and we're just going to try to like knock each other out
Well, I
while
think
I look for my takedown openings, of course.
I hear you. Well, Ilima, certainly look, it's always great to have you back out there. I'm sure you're going to bring the aloha as always when you go out there to the cage. So looking forward to it. So thank you for the time. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Ilima-Lei Macfarlane taking on Bruna Ellen at Bellator 284. Not going to want to miss it.